It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10. Our top story. Comedian Russell Brand now under criminal investigation for allegations of multiple sexual offences. He claims he's been targeted by the state. The army stood down as enough armed officers report for duty to protect the capital. Former nurse Lucy Letby to face a retrial next June over claims that she tried to murder a baby girl. The rough sleeping target almost certain to be missed by the government, with homelessness on the rise. Plus,
what I'm learning is that dementia is hard. It's hard on the person diagnosed. It's also hard on the family.
And a curse. The wife of Hollywood actor Bruce Willis speaks for the first time about his illness. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages. That's coming up in our press preview from 10:30 right through to midnight. Hello there, good evening. Russell Brand is the subject of a criminal investigation tonight after the Metropolitan Police confirmed that specialist detectives were looking into multiple allegations of non-recent sexual offences. The inquiry was confirmed just minutes before the comedian returned to the video platform Rumble. He's already denied all allegations and didn't address them specifically today, but he did accuse the media and the state of a conspiracy of silence. Sky's arts and entertainment correspondent Katie Spencer was listening in.
We are going to be talking about the state and the legacy media's war on free speech, and in particular how that has affected me this week. We've also got
at times breathless, speaking even more quickly than usual. Russell Brand might have hoped the focus would be on his interpretation of the last week or so. But 20 minutes before his video went up on the so-called free-thinking video-sharing platform Rumble, the Metropolitan Police made a statement of its own. Upstaging Brands with an update on how the reported claims by dispatches and in the Times by 4 women alleging rape and sexual assault, vehemently denied by Brand, have prompted a number of women to contact them with allegations of sexual offences taking place in London as well as elsewhere in the country, confirming that the offences are all non-recent and that officers will be offering specialist support to all the women who have made allegations, explaining that the investigation is being carried out by detectives in the Met's Central Specialist Crime Command.
But the police will be objective. You know, they would take each incident on its own, with each victim, each witnesses, and then if that then builds a pattern of behaviour, then it's something that they will then look to do and look to put forward to the Crown Prosecution Service in due course.
In recent years, Brand's conspiracy-laden content has proven very lucrative for him.
With 1.6 million followers, some estimate that Rumble earns Brand around £27,000 a month, with many watching to see him take a swing at the establishment. And this latest video was just that, with some of his fiercest criticism reserved for those in the seats of power.
I now, in particular, have a new experience on the way that the media and the state can cooperate and corroborate one another's narratives and stories.
Having spent recent years building a fan base centred around alt-media talking points, to his followers it was the usual shtick. Perhaps the only hint of the emotional toll as he thanked a guest.
Jimmy, just to spend a bit of time with you really lifts my spirit at a time where I plainly need it, and I can't tell you how grateful I am.
For a man of such considerable vocabulary, his words carefully chosen, with little to say about the very serious allegations he's been accused of.
Well, Katie is with me now. Russell Brand upstaged by the police, as you said there, but now looking into multiple allegations against him.
Yep, it is the very early stages of this investigation, though, and of course Russell Brand has vehemently denied all of the allegations that have been made against him. Interestingly, the Attorney General, Victoria Prentice, has also ended up at the centre of a bit of or causing a bit of a stir, if you like, within media circles for issuing a contempt of court warning to any publishers about them potentially publishing anything that could prejudice any future criminal investigations. The Times hitting back at that contempt warning that she's issued by saying that their journalism has been rigorously researched and that she was wrong to issue that in the first place. But police as well would say tonight that off the back of that initial investigation, they have now ended up doing their own fact-finding into this. But it is interesting as well that while many people are distancing themselves from Brand, 60,000 people already have tuned in to watch that Rumble.
Katie, thank you. Some armed police officers are still unavailable for duty in the capital tonight after they stepped back from their duties in solidarity with a colleague who was charged with murder. The Met Police Commissioner has called for more legal protection, but one retired senior black officer told us that simply reinforced the view in some communities that police are a law unto themselves. Well, some 80 people have been fatally shot by police in the UK since 1990, according to data from the campaign group Inquest. In the same period, 12 charges of murder or manslaughter were brought for deaths associated with police custody or contact. Only one of them, the death of former footballer Dalian Atkinson by taser, has resulted in a conviction. Well, the Met Police has been responsible for a third of fatal shootings in the UK in three of the past 4 years. Sky's crime correspondent Martin Brunt reports.
Back from the brink. After 3 days of protest, some firearms officers agreed to pick up their weapons again, but not all of them did so. It meant that military backup has been stood down, for now at least. More than 100 officers with the Met's firearms unit, SO19, had refused to carry weapons. A protest at the decision to charge a colleague with murder. The unidentified officer shot dead Chris Cabba in South London last year after armed police followed his car. Former Met marksman Tony Long was cleared over a previous fatal shooting and understands the latest revolt.
There isn't a single officer that is taking this period of reflection that wants to do that. I guarantee that every single man and woman in SO19 that has handed in their cards have done so after a massive amount of soul searching. But the reality is they cannot continue being treated the way that they're treated when they've done exactly what they've been trained to do.
The partial climb down came after the Met Commissioner Sir Mark Rowley called for better legal protection for gun cops and was backed up by the government.
It's important when they're using these legal powers that they do so with clarity. That's why the Home Secretary's asked her department to review the guidance that the officers are operating under to make sure that it is robust and that it commands the confidence not just of the officers but of the public as well.
It's not clear what persuaded some to return to firearms duties. Perhaps the promise of a Home Office review, perhaps the Commissioner's stated understanding of their concerns. But officers tell me they don't just want words, they want action too. But the protest comes at a time of intense scrutiny of police behaviour, when some argue the police should be facing greater oversight.
It comes across quite petulant, and as a result of that, that just reinforces people's view of police service being a law unto themselves and do what they want. And we can't allow that.
And some lawyers involved in these types of cases agree.
What those proposals amount to is a plea for a special status, a privileged and protected status for police officers, which would serve to allow them to avoid even the scrutiny or investigation as suspects right from the outset.
The officer's brief withdrawal of weapons was a warning shot. The threat of a repeat is still there. Martin Brunt, Sky News at Scotland Yard.
The Liberal Democrat leader, Ed Davey, has hinted that his party would be prepared to do a post-election deal with Labour to prevent the Conservatives from forming a government. He categorically ruled out any agreement with the Tories, saying his party could play a critical role in removing them from power. Ed Davey was speaking at conference to Sky's political editor, Beth Rigby.
Yeah, OK. You lead the way.
This a leader who could be in the driving seat behind the next government. After a decade in the wilderness, the Liberal Democrats now back on track. In Bournemouth for their party conference and again the possible kingmakers in a general election.
Well, I have ruled out dealing with the Conservatives for a very good reason. Personally, I've fought the Conservatives all my life.
Do you also rule out any deal, formal or informal, with the Labour Party should it become the biggest party?
Well, beyond ruling out a coalition with the Conservatives and any dealing with the Conservatives, I'm not going to speculate about what else could happen.
A leader that must win against the Tories, Labour, not the enemy. It's really clear you're not doing a deal with the Tories and you might with Labour.
Well, the Conservatives are in government. They've betrayed our country, I think, on so many levels. I think people are sick and tired of them and they want them out of government. And Liberal Democrats can play a critical role. Indeed, large parts of the country, in the Blue Wall, in the West Country, only a vote for the Liberal Democrats can defeat the Conservatives.
A deal perhaps with Labour. Many here would like this man to talk more about a deal with Europe. You want us back in the single market and back in the European Union. Will you just utter the words for me?
People will need to be patient. We need to rebuild that relationship. We need to rebuild the case for greater European cooperation, which the Conservatives have also trashed.
That's, I think, quite a cowardly answer. People were marching. You, as the leader of the Liberal Democrats, will not on camera say emphatically, yes, I want to join the single market in the European Union.
I think that is totally wrong. What it is a practical, realistic answer that deals with the situation we have at hand.
The EU may be the DNA of the Lib Dems, but could party members accept a pact with Labour as its future?
We had a coalition with the Conservatives. Although we achieved some good things, quite frankly, it crucified us.
What do you think about Keir Starmer? Is it a man you reckon that the Lib Dems should do business with, could do business with?
I think do business with on our terms. We shouldn't be standing aside for each other, for sure, but certainly having a shared ambition to get rid of this Conservative government.
So Keir Starmer is a man you could do business with, eh?
I hope so. I hope so.
The Lib Dems grip in their moment of opportunity. Be it coalition or the EU, this a leader who can't afford to lose control. Beth Rigby, Sky News, Bournemouth.
Lucy Letby, the former nurse found guilty of murdering 7 babies, is facing a retrial for attempting to kill a baby girl. The 33-year-old was sentenced to life behind bars last month for the murders at the Countess of Chester Hospital, which took place over a 2-year period. Her retrial relates to one of 6 charges the jury couldn't reach a verdict on. It's set to begin next June and last for 4 weeks. The number of NHS appointments cancelled since December because of industrial action has surpassed 1 million. That's after junior doctors and consultants walked out last week in their first ever joint action in a dispute over pay and working conditions. Ministers say they won't budge on the pay rise, which it has already put forward. A teenage motorcyclist has been killed in a crash after being chased by police in central London. The 18-year-old was being pursued by 2 police bikes after running a red light when he hit a taxi on Tottenham Court Road in central London. A 17-year-old passenger on the motorbike suffered non-life-threatening injuries and was arrested after being found with a machete. Up to 65 flights to and from Gatwick could be cancelled on Friday, with others expected throughout the week because of staff sickness in air traffic control. Takeoffs and landings will be limited to 800 a day, which means 164 cancellations will be shared between airlines until Sunday. Well, let's turn now to the story of Ian. He is a homeless heroin addict, one of thousands of rough sleepers struggling to find a safe place to spend each night. A new report has predicted the government will miss its target to end rough sleeping by the end of this Parliament, with numbers up by 26%. Ian spent the day with our home editor Jason Farrell and a warning there are images of drug use coming up.
We can all see him, but somehow Ian is invisible.
Spare a little change, please. Spare a little change, please. Spare a little change, please.
And the government's goal to end rough sleeping by next year seems to have vanished too. A report today says the reverse is happening.
Thank you.
Ian has been off and on the streets since he was 17. We followed his progress since the pandemic. Last Christmas was spent in a self-built wooden home under a flyover in Hammersmith. By the spring, he'd moved to Skegness and got a job in McDonald's.
Spare a little change, please.
But come early summer, he was back on the streets in West London.
Hi, thank you for calling Streetly.
There's a helpline that links rough sleepers with support and accommodation. Concerned members of the public can also use it. But Ian wasn't optimistic.
And it is likely that it may take some time before a member of the team can answer your call.
Just want to see if we can actually speak to someone.
Yeah, you can't. You can't. I can tell you that now.
So were you off the drugs when you were in Skegness? Completely?
Yeah, everything for like 4 months.
But just a day on the streets in London and Ian was back on heroin and crack.
Yeah, it's pointless trying to stay away from it, to be honest, when you're on the streets, because you can't. It's, you know, it's on the streets.
This phone call is ridiculous.
I know, and you wonder why people are homeless, because they don't do what they say on the tin. They say, oh, we help homeless people, we get them off the street, do you? All right, cool, but I'm coming now, yeah?
And soon after that, Ian was off to get some drugs.
Yes. You don't want us to film him meeting
Yeah,
him,
you
right?
can't film it now, we'll literally get killed.
Meanwhile, I stayed on hold.
They are not going to answer.
Tell me about where you're sleeping tonight.
Well, I'm sleeping just up here. Yeah, this is my little house at the moment. There.
Right, yeah. It's not quite as grand as the one you built last time.
Ian left us while he went to score. I'd been on hold 30 minutes now. Most homeless people's phones would have run out of credit. 5 minutes later, Ian had got what he wanted. Today's report by the Kerslake Commission warns rough sleeping was up a quarter this year. It suggests local authorities should be funded to provide guaranteed accommodation for rough sleepers like Ian and more investment in drug and alcohol support.
How badly did you need that?
Bad. Like, I needed it before UK.
But do you worry about what it's doing to you?
Not really.
What would get you off it again?
Getting in somewhere.
Just getting a home?
Yeah. Just want a job in a normal life, but it's hard to get. People don't want you to have that.
How are you feeling now?
All right. Yeah. Like I need to go and make more money.
So you're already thinking about the next one?
Yeah. Yeah.
You want to go?
Yeah. Yeah, because that's what I'd do anyway.
Okay, let's do it.
Oh, can't believe he's still on it. Well, I can believe he's still on it.
And after an hour on hold.
Yeah. Hi. Yeah, I'm just calling on behalf of a guy called Ian who's currently homeless and on the street, and he's looking for somewhere to stay tonight.
Ian was connected to a local outreach team a few days later, but he's still on the streets. StreetLink says it's successfully managed 500,000 alerts since 2012. The Kerslake report wants more social housing to help people on the brink. But with budgets stretched, a man without a home, without a ballot paper, might not be next year's political priority. Jason Farrell, Sky News.
Thousands of refugees laden with their belongings have fled the disputed territory of Nagorno-Karabakh in Azerbaijan over fears of ethnic cleansing. And even as they queued up for fuel to escape, more than 200 people were injured in an explosion at a border petrol station. Well, the US and EU have expressed deep concerns over violence in the territory, which is recognised internationally as part of Azerbaijan, but has been under Armenian control since the 1990s. Local officials say tens of thousands are planning to leave, with many arriving in the town of Goris. Our Moscow correspondent Diana Magnay has this report.
This exodus has many more days to go. Thousands of ethnic Armenians leaving their ancestral homeland of Nagorno-Karabakh. Thousands more backed up, queuing to follow them. Precious little fuel and an explosion at a filling station. The local hospital rammed with some 200 casualties, many of them severe, making a terrible situation even worse. Azerbaijan says nothing bad will happen to those who stay. But after their blitzkrieg offensive last week, a 9-month blockade of the region and decades of conflict and hostility, Armenians do not believe them.
It was a nightmare. There are no words to describe. The village was heavily shelled. Almost no one is left in the village.
In Nakhchivan, a patch of Azerbaijani land surrounded in 3 parts by Armenia, the red carpet was rolled out for Turkey's president, a key ally of Azerbaijani leader Ilham Aliyev.
I am sure the integration process of the Armenian people living in Karabakh to Azerbaijani society will be successful.
But Armenians are hardwired not to trust what either of these two men say, after a century which has seen genocide, pogroms and war. And they feel that Russia, too, has failed them.
While we have appreciated in the past
their role to protect the Armenian population. It has not been clear for us why in several occasions, Russian peacekeepers didn't take measures against Azerbaijani aggression, or why Russia didn't take the corridor, Lachin corridor, under its control when Azerbaijan illegally blockaded that corridor.
If no Armenians stay in Karabakh, this is a heavy legacy for Armenia's president, Nikol Pashinyan, and one many in the capital will not let him forget. And it will mark the end of centuries of Armenian life and culture in these hills, an ethnicity wiped out, leaving for now of their own accord, but driven by fear of what they might face if they do not. Diana Magnay, Sky News.
To Hollywood now, where a writer's strike has paralysed the industry for months, halting production of blockbusters and talk shows alike. That walkout could soon end after writers who are demanding higher pay, bigger royalties and protections against artificial intelligence came to a tentative deal with movie studios and streaming giants. But with actors still on the picket line, change won't be immediate, as Martha Kelnett reports from Los Angeles.
This is how Hollywood's writers celebrated the end of one of the longest strikes in the history of this industry. A bitter 5-month battle against studio and streaming bosses, all but over pending approval of union members. An email late in the evening telling them a deal had been done. This, the standout line.
We can say with great pride that this deal is exceptional, with meaningful gains and protections for writers in every sector of the membership.
Screenwriter KC was on the picket throughout this 146-day standoff.
We put them in a spot that they didn't want to be in. We put them in a spot that they should have realized they're going to find themselves in 5 months ago, but like most employers that are dealing with a unionized workforce, they had to find out the hard way.
Sky News understands that most of the demands writers made, including more royalty payments and transparency over viewing figures on streaming services, have been met. They've also been guaranteed protections from the role of artificial intelligence in future filmmaking.
Studio lots like this one across LA have been empty for months now, but Hollywood's not going to spring back into action just because a deal has been done with the writers. Still, more than 100,000 actors remain on strike.
It means the release of series like Stranger Things and blockbuster films are being pushed back further into next year. Outside Netflix HQ, one man and a dog were still on the picket. Striking will continue for actors after a break for Jewish holiday Yom Kippur.
We wouldn't have gotten that deal without SAG, so I think now it's incumbent on the Writers Guild members to support SAG until they get paid.
For now, the only productions able to resume will be late-night chat shows like Jimmy Kimmel Live and talk shows that don't rely on actors. But the message to studios is clear. Until a deal is done with actors, Hollywood will remain mostly at a standstill. Martha Kelnett, Sky News, Los Angeles.
A blessing and a curse. That's how the wife of actor Bruce Willis described his dementia diagnosis today, more than a year after it was first made public. Emma Willis said the actor's aphasia, which affects his speech and movement, had taught the family how to love and care. Here's Alice Porter.
Mayday, mayday, anyone copying Channel 9?
He's been one of Hollywood's biggest stars, but now it's Emma Hemming Willis who's in the spotlight, speaking in her first interview since her husband was diagnosed with frontotemporal dementia.
Dementia is hard. It's hard on the person diagnosed. It's also hard on the family. And that is no different for Bruce or myself or our girls. And when they say that this is a family disease, it really is.
In March, Bruce Willis's daughter, Rumer Willis, posted on Instagram the sad news that her father was diagnosed with FDD at just 67 years old and would be stepping away from his acting career.
I love you still, and you know I always will.
He had been struggling with speech and language for some time. For his family, there was some relief in finally getting a diagnosis.
I think it was the blessing and the curse, you know, to sort of finally understand what was happening so that I can be into the acceptance of what is.
Does he know what's going on? Is that something that he is aware of?
Hard to know.
FDD is a rare form of dementia and affects people at a much younger age and can be difficult to diagnose.
Somebody who's normally speaks absolutely fine has trouble putting their thoughts into meaningful sentences, or they may lose the meaning of a specific word. We're talking about maybe a person who always managed the family's finances, all of a sudden has trouble balancing a checkbook.
Emma and Bruce have 2 young children. It's clear that the family are trying to stay strong despite the uncertain future.
This is not what I would want for them, but really, like I said, it's teaching them so much and how to care and love, and it's a beautiful thing amongst the sadness.
His acting days are now behind him, but Bruce Willis and his family are now trying to raise awareness about FDD so that other patients can be helped. Alice Porter, Sky News.
Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers in the press preview. Tonight, we're joined by the New Statesman's policy and politics correspondent, Zoe Grunewald, and the Sun's political editor, Harry Cole. Welcome to both of you. And among the stories we will be discussing, this on the front page of the Mail, their headline, Suella, Channel migrants are not refugees. That and plenty more when we come back. Well, this is Sky News. In just a moment, the press preview, a first look at what is on the front pages. First, though, a reminder of our top stories this evening. The Metropolitan Police say they've received a number of allegations of sex offences by Russell Brand in London and elsewhere in the country and are now formally investigating. Scores of armed police officers remain unavailable for duty in London, but the army has been stood down from providing additional support. And the Liberal Democrat leader, Sir Ed Davey, has hinted he would do a deal with Labour if his party held the balance of power after the next election. Hello there, you are watching the press preview, a first look at what is on the front pages. Time then to see what's making the headlines with The Sun's political editor, Harry Cole, and the New Statesman's policy and politics correspondent, Zoe Grunewald, with us from now till midnight. Welcome to both of you. So, to the front pages, as ever, let's kick off tonight with the Mail, leading with an upcoming speech by the Home Secretary, in which she will say that Channel migrants are not refugees. That speech is also the main story on the front page of The Telegraph. According to the Metro, Russell Brand has claimed the government is out to censor him. It comes as the Metropolitan Police announced it's launched an investigation into alleged historical sex offences, which Mr Brand denies. Same lead for The Mirror. The headline there, Brand sex assault claims grow. The Guardian is leading with a new report by the Prisons Watchdog, which says that many are in a shocking state and that 1 in 10 should be closed down. The Yorkshire Post carries fears by senior MPs that the predicted scrapping of the northern section of HS2 would be an act of gross vandalism, which would only worsen the north-south divide. The Times says the Prime Minister is getting concerned about what's being called the runaway cost of the project. The Financial Times, meanwhile, quotes the new American owners of Birmingham City Football Club, who say HS2 was one of the reasons they bought the club and scrapping it would damage trust in the UK. The Eye hears that if Labour wins power, they intend to impose a 20% VAT on private school fees within their first year in office. And finally, the Daily Star tells us that the RSPCA is now being overrun with rabbits and other furry creatures, including rats, as the cost of living crisis forces owners to dump them. Well, if you will have a rat. Anyway, scanning the QR code right now will allow you to see those front pages and listen to our guests. So why don't you do that? In the meantime, let's go to Harry and Zoe. Welcome to both of you. A quick look at what's the lead for a number of newspapers. Zoe, why don't you start? This is Russell Brand. Police are now investigating as he hits out at the state, legacy media and so on.
Yeah, so Brand is sort of stoking up his defences here. Obviously, this story's been running for a bit now. So the police have now said they are investigating Brand after more women have come forward with claims of sex assault by Brand himself. I think what's really interesting about this is the way Brand has defended himself straight away. He's saying this is a conspiracy, this is the state, the media trying to silence me for my views. He's hit out at Caroline Dinage, the chair of the DCMS Select Committee, after she wrote to a number of social media platforms about their protections when people come forward with allegations. And he's also talking about how he's been demonetised on various social media platforms and saying that's, because people are trying to silence him, essentially. So, I mean, it's really difficult because whenever people come up with these kind of conspiracy theories, there's always going to be a group of people that believe them. And no matter how much evidence comes up, it's all going to be seen as more evidence that this is a deep state conspiracy. So we can see Brand is really building his defence here.
Yes, when he talked about legacy media, I sat there thinking, I wonder if Sky News is old enough to be legacy media. Maybe it is now. But yes, I mean, it's very interesting, isn't it, that they came out almost the same time. The idea that we now have an official investigation after a number of complaints were made. And, he, of course, is still speaking directly, which is a tactic we've seen, directly to his followers.
Yeah, I do slightly worry, and we obviously put it on the front page of our paper today because it's a massive story, but I do wonder whether we're slightly giving him slightly amplifying what is otherwise a slightly fringe view. And obviously he's had these millions of YouTube followers, and it falls down on that weird sort of COVID culture war dividing line. But at the end of the day, he clearly put this video out today because he was told that he was under formal police investigation. So he's getting his punches in first, but I'm not sure it's actually going to do him much good. He may make a lot of noise in the meantime, but we now know that Scotland Yard is investigating. There are multiple complaints against him. That will take time to investigate. It could take years, it could take months. But, it's clearly the flailings of a desperate man. However, I do worry that in this hysteria, that people are sort of giving him ammunition. Caroline Dinage, for example, as Zoe mentioned, the chairperson of the DCMS committee, who I think kind of probably overstrayed her brief a little bit by writing to lots of tech firms as if she was a minister, saying, you've got to take this man down, you've got to pull this off, and giving sort of tech firms who quite like thumbing their nose at government the opportunity to do so. And Russell Brand's becoming this sort of almost this catalyst for a much bigger fight between the states, the West generally, and tech firms who kind of want to do their own thing. And that's a real problem because you're allowing someone who's clearly, facing serious allegations to paint himself as some sort of freedom fighter.
Yeah, he, of course, denies all the allegations.
Of course he does.
Zoe, let's head on to HS2. Multiple front pages, all of them with a slightly different take. Kicking off with the Financial Times, which sees it from the business point of view, and the new American owners of Birmingham City, who said that was one of the reasons we went there.
This is going to be a big problem for Sunak. He's, supposed to be seen as this Prime Minister of business, of investment. That's really who he's setting himself up to be. And currently we're seeing quite a lot of noise now from investors, from people who say HS2 was supposed to build the economy, who are now asking Sunak and government ministers, why would you do this? What's it going to do to regions you were supposedly levelling up? What's it going to do to industry? And we've seen this here. This is quite a major intervention from Birmingham City's US owners here. Again, Sunak's trying to build relationships with the US. The US is going to, hopefully, Sunak wants it to be one of our trading partners, although he's yet to strike any kind of comprehensive trade deal. But we can see that this is not the headline that Sunak's going to be wanting. He's not going to be wanting this kind of criticism from US business. And indeed, add it to the long list of people who are starting to criticise the Prime Minister for his... I mean, he hasn't confirmed that they are going to scrap HS2 at the minute. It's just all in the works. But, just add it to the long list of people unhappy.
Come on then, what's your intel?
I think they would have denied it now if they weren't going to do it. It would have been very easy to come out Monday morning, bang.
Yes.
No, HS2 is going from Euston to Manchester. They didn't say that. So
Maybe a decision hasn't been made, though.
I think the decision was made a little while ago. They've opened up the books. Inflation and construction inflation is running at 21%, or was for a large part of this year. Just to the point they're trying to buy steel and concrete. Steel and concrete prices are through the roof. This project is been doomed, I think, really from the start. Paul Johnson, who used to be at the OBR, the people we've been hearing a lot about in recent months and years as this sort of financial watchdog of the government. He's now at a think tank called the IFS. He said it was almost a sin this thing was even signed off, how little the planning was for it. It was always
Well, it was supposed to cost 37 billion, wasn't it?
37 billion, it's now 106 billion. So, look, are they clearly going to lop a large bit of it off? Yes, I think that decision's already been made. Have they been surprised by the scale of the backlash? You've got 3 former prime ministers, usual suspects on that front, though. You've got ex-chancellors, you've got hundreds of business leaders, as Zoe said. You've got this sort of wall of noise, which they didn't really want to have. And also, you're talking about lopping off the Manchester leg 4 days before the Tories are going to start their conference in Manchester. I think what they're going to do now is they're going to try and put a lid on it. They're going to say no decision's been made, and they're going to kick it into the autumn statement, and they'll have this row in November. But I think the decisions are fundamentally made. And I think what you'll see is a delay, make it someone else's problem, kick it 10 years down the line, which this project's always been something in the future. So why should, why the government kind of feel, why should we take all the heat for this when actually we can free up some of the cash, some of the billions, and spend it on other infrastructure projects in the north and try and sort of spin it, I suspect, as we're going to go sort of east to west rather than north to south, and we're going to spend that money in the short term in Leeds, in Liverpool, in Manchester, but without doing that final stretch. And also, frankly, this thing is not going to be online until 2040 anyway, so you can delay. The difference of a delay of 3 or 4 years, really, no one's ever thought this thing was ever going to be on time and on our budget.
Well, here they are putting a lid on it really effectively. It looks a bit leaky, doesn't it? The Yorkshire Post, scrapping HS2 would be an act of vandalism. Quotes
George Osborne, Michael Heseltine, everyone, they're all out
Cameron.
tonight.
And then the Times, PM is alarmed by the runaway cost of HS2. Yes, well, we know that, don't we?
I think
the project's finances are far worse than anyone knows. More senior Tories warn against curtailing the route. They're warning about it for political reasons, because you promised in your parliament to level up, and this is the biggest indicator that you've given up the ghost. Is that the problem?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when we look at Sunak versus Johnson, and, Johnson, as Harry was saying, he's perpetual kind of thorn in the backside of Sunak in many ways. This is a...
So delicately put.
Yes, well, maybe not your exact words, Harry, but it has really been... he has been an issue for Sunak, and HS2 very much was part of Johnson's big levelling up offering. It was one of the platforms...
But he likes infrastructure spending.
Well, but he very nearly cancelled this in 2020 when he came in, because the same people went, this is insane, this is going to be over cost, this is going to be over budget, and he nearly cancelled it. They were all ready to announce it until this exact same, dare I say, blob came forward.
It's not the blob, though,
No, it's a different blob. It's a business.
No.
But you've got Michael
owners are not the blob.
No, I'm saying, but it's a wall of noise. It is a group of people who.
Well, is it a cabinet split now? They talk about Michael Gove, Mark Harper.
I'm pretty sure the cabinet are about as split as anything, but they're also occasionally when. You hear lots about cabinet splits, and then suddenly they're nodding dogs as soon as the decision is made. So I wouldn't read too much into cabinet splits. Yes, I'm sure Gove wants it to happen, but also there are other ways of levelling up the country without spending billions and billions of pounds between Manchester and Birmingham. There's lots of other places in the north that need infrastructure spending that isn't here, and there is a case to be made for doing that, but they've just let this story run out of control. They've allowed... Sunak was attacking speculation today. How dare we speculate as journalists on what they might do when the only people fueling that speculation is the government. So they can't have it both ways. They can't dangle cancelling HS2 as they've done for weeks now, and then get annoyed when we try to work out exactly which bit they're going to cut off.
But also, on the flip side of this, I mean, in a way, this also puts Labour on the spot. Labour, you know, they've got the poll lead. They're likely to be taking office next year. People are now asking Starmer, they're asking Labour, what are you going to do about HS2? Where are you going to find this money from? Is this the best use of Labour's spending? And we know Labour are being really fiscally conservative at the minute. So it puts a lot of pressure on Labour as well, and I suspect that is to some extent why they have let the story run a bit, because it is putting pressure on Labour as well. And they've got their conference the week after next as well.
Well, Sadiq Khan calling it a shuttle between West London and Birmingham, and saying that if you wanted to go from Birmingham to central London, it will now take longer than it did before, and 225 miles an hour should have been the fastest.
I have to say, when I
Europe.
first wrote the story on the 27th of January that they were considering lopping off Manchester and stopping at Old Oak Common, it was denied on the record by the Chancellor, and here we are. So never believe anything until it's officially denied.
Anyway, but you're saying decision November-ish.
Decision done, announcement in November, I suspect.
OK. I feel like we've had a strafing since that net zero, policy change. We've had so many policies dropped. I feel like they're just, throw off the scent. That's what it felt like for the last 4 days.
This is Rishi taking sort of Ben Stokes-style swings of the bat, but as everyone saw it during the Ashes, it was very entertaining, but ultimately it was a draw, so it might not work.
Well, we'll see if this next story is as well. Daily Mail, Suella, Channel migrants are not refugees. She wants to head to America and give a speech in which she will challenge the Human Rights Convention of 1951.
UN's Refugee Convention of 1951, which basically says that people should be allowed to claim asylum in various countries, where she's saying, actually, no, the first country you should come to should be where you're able to do it. It does feel a little bit, with all due respect, that, flying to the United States to sort of declare that we're going to leave the UN's charters feels like a last roll of the dice.
Yeah, but a right-wing think tank might feel like a safe home at the moment.
Sure, but also they've tried a barge, they've tried various deterrents, they've tried Rwanda. And this is like, right, well, if we can't do it, then let's just tear up all the rules. It's punchy.
Well, the Sun, your paper, just checking if it's you. No, it's not.
Not me tonight.
It's your deputy. Suella, it's time to ban shopping around on asylum. And in fact, part of the quotes that she'll use apparently in her speech is from the Centre for Policy Studies. Nick Timothy, who used to work with Theresa May, obviously.
Used to be a Sky Papers reviewer from time to time.
And Carl Williams said, the UN Convention confers the notional right to move to another country upon at least 780 million people. So that is the basis for the suggestion that they should no longer shop around for asylum. Zoe?
Yeah, I mean, it's an extraordinary number, and we know that currently the immigration system here in this country and across the world is under a great deal of pressure, and that will only get worse as we see more environmental disasters, as we see more war, things like that. So you can understand why the government feel the need to talk about it, but as you say, I mean, this feels pretty performative, talking about leaving the European Convention of Human Rights and setting up that stall to do so. I think, really, the government needs to take a good, long, hard look at the system here. You know, the Home Office needs reform, lots of reform. We need to sort out the detention delays. We need to sort out the various ways in which
speed of processing.
Yep, house immigrants. But it's much easier for her to do this, you know, a big performative gesture and fly to the US and talk about how it's, you know, the courts and Europe that are holding us up.
To be fair, though, they are. A lot of us, the asylum backlog is substantially held up by the fact that people are able to make dubious claims under human rights legislation to delay their departure from this country, and it often ends in the same. It ends in the same.
The initial processing is being held up by European.
Absolutely, the initial processing, the initial. You know, people land in Dover and they're handed literally leaflets by campaigners on how to frustrate the process. So no wonder that, you know, as the numbers have increased of landing, the number of processing is harder. There are multiple layers of legislation now that people can use to try and frustrate their applications from being rejected. I think there's an element. I have an element of sympathy with Braverman and Patel before her and multiple governments before that, because actually there is, frankly, a lobby group in this country who want open borders, and they will use these situations, the situation in the Channel, to campaign for that. And the people that are getting caught up in that are the people that are landing here. They're being given false promise that they can frustrate their processes. It goes down the line. It just takes a lot longer.
But do you mean illegal? Do you mean legal open borders? This is illegal, true?
This is illegal. This is also people bogus asylum seekers as well. People told that they have a decent claim to be in this country when they don't. And that clogs up the system. And frankly, we will have to change the rules in some way if we're ever going to clear that.
Yeah, well, yet another election issue, no doubt, don't you think? And we'll certainly hear more about that as well. So that is Braverman in Washington, I think you said, did you?
I think so, yeah. We weren't invited, so we'll never know.
I think it was embargoed. I think
Oops.
No, I think it was still 10:30. We might be all right.
The Home Office are on the phone already,
anyway,
yeah.
coming up, Labour says they will impose 20% VAT on private school fees. More on that to come.
Wonderful. I'm sitting here with Nikos. He is virtually Nikos in this taverna, which he owns, and he likes to make a few pounds.
You know. Me and Bjorn, we go back way, long time.
So he's come up with this idea to have like a Mamma Mia party in his taverna.
Exactly.
Because the movie was, the first movie was such a big hit.
It was.
It was filmed in Skopelos, and. Now the tourists are flocking.
The tourists are flocking. Yeah. Nikos wants to earn some money, and it's the aftermath of them films, isn't it?
Yeah.
The film's already done. This is a different story to the films that you love and see. And it brought back memories. I said to Bjorn, it brought back memories of living in Cyprus when I was younger, in a taverna, family-run business. And it just sort of brought a lot of emotion. And Stacey, the director, said, would you consider doing it? And I said, I'll only consider doing it if I audition, because I don't want people to think I got the part because of what I do or what I've done. I wanted to prove my worth. And I did the audition. Bjorn sort of ticked the box and said, yeah, he's our new Nikos. And yeah, he was very, very happy last night, and I'm so happy he's happy. You literally leave your troubles outside, you come into the Nikos' taverna, you leave your troubles outside, and you come into the Mamma Mia world, Mamma Mia, the party world, and you are literally entertained. There's a love story that goes through it as well. Nikos' troubles, Nikos is the matriarch, but he's a soft puppy inside, and yeah, there's so much that goes on, and people can get up and dance, they can sing, they can do whatever they want. It's a free party, and it's all because of this genius here next to me.
And it's 3-4 hours away from all the troubles out there.
Outside.
Because it is a dark age we're living in, I think, and people need this kind of happiness. Just forget about everything else for a couple of hours.
Just have a party, yeah.
But my favorite to perform was my solo, which was Does Your Mother Know?
Oh, great song.
I love doing that. I love being the top idol, the front man, the front man. Yeah.
Let's just bring you some breaking news that the Scottish-born actor David McCallum has died of natural causes, we're told, surrounded by family at the New York Presbyterian Hospital. David was a gifted actor, said the statement, and author, and beloved by many around the world. He led an incredible life, and his legacy will forever live on through his family and the countless hours on film and television that will never go away. This is a statement issued by CBS. He certainly appeared in some of the films you might remember, The Great Escape, for example, The Greatest Story Ever Told as Judas, A Night to Remember about the Titanic, but it was his role as in The Man from U.N.C.L.E., if anyone can remember that one, back in the mid-60s, rather, that made him a household name at the time. So Scottish-born David McCallum, aged 90, has died. Well, welcome back to our press preview. With me once again, Harry Cole and Zoe Grunewald. Welcome back to both of you. Zoe, let's head to the eye, shall we? Policies possibly trickling out from Labour, including on private schools. 20% VAT in the first year of winning power, the eye tells us.
Yeah, so this is a policy that had already been trailed by Labour and spoken about by the Shadow Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson. So this is Labour introducing 20% VAT on private schools, and this would be immediately as soon as they win the if they win the general election. So they're saying. So yeah, we've already heard quite a bit about this. This is one of the few policies that Labour have where they are actually committing to more public spending. So that the money levied from the VAT will go into state school spending. It's costed. It's one of the sort of few fully costed policies that Labour currently have. And it's backed by the IFS, who have said that actually, yes, this will raise a small but considerable sum that can go back into the state sector.
1.7 billion, the paper tells.
Yes, yep. And I think that would be about a 2% increase in state spending. And they also said, so some of the criticisms that have been levied against this policy have been, it's a tax on aspiration, it will prevent children from attending private school. Actually, the IFS pointed out a few months ago when it looked into the policy that around 6 to 7% of school children currently attend private school, and that number has pretty much stayed the same over the last 20 years, despite a 20% real-term increase in school fees.
But the argument has been, for those parents who can't afford it, should the schools pass some of the costs on, the state system can't cope with the extras.
Of course they'll pass it on. That's just the way things tax on any businesses work, or businesses, even if they have charitable status, but at the end of the day, they are about raising money, they're about spending money. My concern with this is that some of the best schools in Britain in the private sector are currently already stuffed with Chinese and Russian and foreign pupils, and they're just pricing out British kids from going to these schools, and as you say, they're going to have to go somewhere, and the current state system can't cope with it. Do we want to essentially offshore our school system to the children of foreigners? If so, make it more expensive, tax it, fine. But I just do think that you're fundamentally going to change actually a key part of our education system that keeps the rest of the education system going. Don't forget that these schools have a charitable status, so they can't make profits. All of that money is reinvested. It's reinvested into local communities. They're reinvested into sharing schemes with local schools around in the surrounding areas of all of these schools that have shared resources. All of that is at risk if you risk bankrupting these organisations or making them the domain of a foreign elite, which this policy is going to do.
OK, running out of time. I'm just going to show you the two quick stories we're going to do. We'll talk about them later. Russia has weathered Western sanctions over the invasion of Ukraine. This is the oligarch Oleg Deripaska admitting surprise at the country's resilience. And the final one is trolled in public. Council leader is now a gargoyle as planning wars turn ugly. Do you know, it's not bad, though, is it? To be fair. Anyway,
the glasses are spot on.
Yeah, spot on. Anyway, apologies. Anyway, we'll see you later. Harry and Zoe, thank you for now. Thank you. See you in the 11. To the weather now.
Warm memories wherever you go. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
So most of us will see some wet weather on Tuesday. Wednesday, it's when the weather goes downhill as we're hit by Storm Agnes. By dawn on Tuesday, we'll be seeing some heavy rain in Ireland, Northern Ireland and the Western Isles, some strong winds as well in the northwest. Ahead of that, some showers across the north, southern England and South Wales too. The showers and patchy rain will spread and most places will turn rather breezy. Heaviest rain, strongest winds will be across the northwest. During the afternoon, persistent rain will spiral from northern Scotland, leaving sunshine and showers elsewhere.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
The five of us have made it out of the car.